Okay, Thanksgiving is coming up. At my house, or at my family's house, I'm always in charge of making the mashed potatoes because everybody says I make the best mashed potatoes. It's probably because I'm not afraid of 3 sticks of butter and an entire container of heavy whipping cream, but they are pretty good. So, little garlic, some Yukon Gold potatoes, and here comes the process of how to make the best mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving or any time of the year. Tonight we're having them with meatloaf.
What's Daddy doing? He can pick you up and give you an aerial view of my potato peeling skills.
Okay, now that you got your potatoes all peeled, come back in with your paring knife and cut out all the weird bits that you couldn't get with the peeler. Now that you got your potatoes all peeled and prepped, we're going to cut it into just about 1-inch cubes. You want all your cubes to be about the same size so it cooks evenly. Okay, potatoes are all cut. Now we go for about 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. Put in some cold water. You want the water to just cover the potatoes there, so almost all the way full. Then we move it over to the heat. So now we crank those things onto high heat. Started out in cold water. Gonna come up to temperature. I left my Le Creuset pot at the office after the chili cook-off, so I'm using 2 smaller all-clad pots. You could do it all in one and that would be fine, depending on how much potatoes you're making. So these have been boiling for about 5 minutes. Pull one out, try and mash it. Not really mashing, so it needs a little bit more time, probably another 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, checking our potatoes again. I'll scoop one out. Alright, that passes the mash test. So I'll grab a bigger one. There you go. That's how you want it to look. You want it to be mashable when it's in the pot. If you go too far, then it just turns all mushy. You don't want that. So cut the heat there, get out the colander, drain this, and on to the next step. Okay, now we get a full stick of butter. Put that in your skillet. About a tablespoon of chopped garlic in there. Now you want that to you want to put the garlic in with the butter because it'll sweat the garlic flavor into the butter, so it's flavoring this butter that we're melting on the stove, and then that's going to get added in to the mixture over here. Now we have the trusty KitchenAid. I'm going to put the potatoes in there. This is about a 3-quart pot's worth. You only want your KitchenAid filled halfway up because when you crank this thing on, it's going to spew potatoes everywhere. Going to come in with this butter and garlic mixture. Dump that in there. Now I've got about a cup of heavy cream here. I'm going to start out with about half of that. Put this down in there. Hit the lock button. Come on real nice and slow, and just let that work on low power. I'm watching consistency here. I don't want it to get too mashed up and too smooth. I want a little chunk and a little feel in it. So I'm going to scrape the blade down, crank her back on. I'm working with my grandmother's vintage KitchenAid. It still says Hobart on the side of it. It's a real one. So scraping the blade down some more. Crank that back on. I'm on level 2 now. Making sure my bowl's not falling off because sometimes it flies off. So now I'm scraping this all in there. Level 1, I'm watching to make sure it doesn't get too beat up because I like a little bit of chunk in there. I think my initial thing was a little bit underexposed, but we'll check that. And I've still got some pretty good sized chunks in there. So I'm going to let it go a little bit more. I feel like I can add another little bit of the half and half, or the, sorry, heavy cream. So now we're up to a full cup of heavy cream. Crank up the power a little bit. And now I think I have most of my chunks whipped out. And again, it's whatever consistency you want. Taste testing now. Tastes pretty good. Now we're going to go for some salt. Call that a teaspoon of salt. Back on with the mix. Taste test that, pretty good. It's got some little lumps in it, but so it's got some little lumps in it, but again, I like mine with a little bit of lump in it. Now I know what you're thinking, but James, I don't have my grandma's vintage KitchenAid. How do I make those awesome mashed potatoes? I've got you covered. I'm gonna make the second batch with a standard hand mixer to show you how it's done. Okay, we've once again drained our potatoes in the colander, dumping them in this bowl. This is about a 5-quart pot, so same process. Butter melted with garlic in it. Put that in there. And then we got, this time, about 1.5 cups of heavy cream, putting that in there. And now we have our hand mixer. Gonna start out on low power with that. It's much easier with the KitchenAid, but if you don't have one, you can still do it with this. And now I know what you're thinking, but James, I don't have Grandma's vintage KitchenAid or a hand mixer. What am I gonna do? You can get after it with this spud ski and just mash it like that, but I'm not gonna do that. If you're serious about Thanksgiving, you probably have access to KitchenAid or a hand mixer, and you should use those. I'm just pushing all these down in there so we can get them chopped up. I crank up the power a little bit. A little more power. Put a tablespoon of salt in this. Okay, now I'm looking for any big chunks that I don't want in there. Making sure to get everything down off the side and mix that in. Going in for a taste test. Pretty good.